That little stretch there could put about 10 homes in there.
Tonight, the son of a respected veteran wants to create a tiny home neighborhood for homeless vets in Winnipeg.
I get to be the first for something. I think all human beings like to be the first for something.
And a businesswoman lands a first in Nunavut. She now has the authority to certify Inuit art as Inuk. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. We begin in Burnaby, BC tonight, where water protectors today protested outside the West Ridge-owned Trans Mountain tanker terminal. They're afraid an increase in tanker traffic due to the Trans Mountain pipeline expansion will harm marine life. At the protest today, 2 individuals were arrested for breaching an injunction at the terminal. Oil from the Trans Mountain pipeline will be shipped to Asian markets from Burnaby on tankers. The protectors say an increase in tanker traffic would increase chances of a spill.
So now that the marine life is just coming back, it'd be a shame to see it just kind of, be further destroyed. And so that's the same with the Tsleil-Waututh. And in Tsleil-Waututh, I understand have same similar values and beliefs, and I would hate for them to, have their beautiful territory destroyed.
To the Yukon now, where the Champagne-Ashiak First Nation have agreed to shut down their right to fish. It's in order to allow the few returning salmon to spawn. First Nation members are concerned about the very low numbers of returning salmon to their village of Klukshu and have agreed to give up their right to harvest. The forecast for the 2018 salmon run predicted less fish than previous years. So far, the number of salmon returning is even worse than expected. Meanwhile, hunting season starts today in the Yukon. This year, the Yukon government is putting limits on hunting permits. It's to protect dwindling caribou herds and to respect the wishes of one Yukon First Nation. The territorial government canceled 30 hunting permits for the Finlayson caribou herd after conservation concerns for the animals were raised by the Ross River Denna Council. They've stated non-Casca hunters need to obtain a permit from them to enter the traditional territory to hunt.
We've seen a sort of steady decline despite numerous efforts, including a restriction on harvest through the permit hunt authorization. So that conservation concern continues. After they placed the ad, we were able to sit down with the Ross River Denna Council to discuss those. Their concerns hadn't alleviated as well, so as I said, this was an agreement of something that we could do this season.
Son of one of the most decorated Indigenous veterans is calling for support for homeless veterans. Tommy Prince Jr. is urging the city of Winnipeg to think outside the box when it comes to ending veteran homelessness. As Brittany Hobson shows us, his pleas appear to be falling on deaf ears.
Tommy Prince Jr. has a vision for the park named after his late father, Sergeant Tommy Prince. It's a proposed plan to tackle homelessness.
That little stretch there could put about 10 homes in there. There's other sections over here, maybe 4 or 5 more. 15 homes. That's 15 veterans off the street.
Prince Jr. is calling on the city of Winnipeg to create a tiny home neighborhood for homeless veterans.
We should be looking after our veterans. They're the ones that went to fight for our country so that we may live in peace and harmony.
This is something Prince Jr. is familiar with. His father is one of Canada's most decorated First Nations officer. But life after the war proved difficult.
I myself has watched my own father die homeless. I asked him to come and live with me and my girlfriend. He said no. He didn't want to be a burden.
The project would be similar to what is being set up in Calgary by the Homes for Heroes Foundation. In April, the organization unveiled plans for a 20-home village that would provide services to homeless veterans. They hope to start this project in other cities. Mayoral candidate Don Woodstock is supporting this initiative. He plans to make it part of his platform.
We asked the individuals from various groups and organizations to support us. I made a presentation to them and they agreed to support us. We did a petition. We walked the street, Tommy Prince and I, we walked the street. We got about 75 plus signatures from individuals that are in this neighborhood who live here.
Woodstock says building homes is a no-brainer, but he feels like many in local government, including Mayor Brian Bowman, aren't listening.
At the end of the day, it saves money to put them in a home, provide services for them. So why are we not doing it? That's my question that I'd like Bowman to answer. And that's my question I want Winnipeggers to answer.
For some people, like this community member, the Tommy Prince Memorial Park is not the place for a tiny village.
The community rallied extensively to have a little bit of green space.
If not this space, any space would do.
All we are asking the city is for a piece of land where we can build these homes.
The mayor's office says it is aware of Homes for Heroes, but hasn't received any requests from Prince Jr. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Time for a quick break, and then we'll continue our look at the child welfare system. But first, here's a story we're working on.
I'm Todd Lamarand, and coming up later, I went to the Friendship Flotilla in Ottawa between police and Indigenous youth. It's the 18th year, and it looked like it was going to be the last. Find out why organizer Linda Kitchakizek was going to throw in the towel, and the last-minute life-saving event that changed her mind.
Behind them, we have the auto.
Here's a look at Thursday's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 32 in Fredericton, 27 for St. John's and Halifax, 8 in Nain, 16 for Happy Valley, Goose Bay, 25 in Val-d'Or and Quebec City, 26 for Montreal. In southern Ontario, 27 in Sarnia, Windsor, Toronto, and Ottawa, 18 in Sault Ste. Marie, 22 for Sioux Lookout, 20 in Thunder Bay, 15 in Wawa. In northern Manitoba, 22 in Puckatawagan, 17 for Churchill. In Winnipeg, 26, 27 almost most other places in southern Manitoba. Over to Saskatchewan, 30 in Swift Current and Estevan, 29 for Regina, 25 in Uranium City and Stony Rapids. Welcome back. The Wood family suffered from violence, but that should not be surprising. Indigenous women are 3 times more likely to suffer violence than other women in Canada. Brittany Hobson takes us deeper into that issue.
It sprawls more than 7,000 acres. It's home to 4,500 people. The remote community of St. Teresa Point sits along the shores of Manitoba's island lakes. It seems peaceful, but some homes here know violence, and this community is not alone. Statistics tell us family violence plagues many Indigenous communities. Only here, women are beginning to talk about it.
I'm not losing another daughter because of domestic violence. Of all this, I'm never again.
In February 2010, Cassandra Wood's body was found in a garage in the community. She died by suicide. Helena believes witnessing 15 years of family violence overwhelmed Cassandra.
There was lots of signs, there was lots of sayings, but nobody heard her. Nobody heard her. Not even her friends.
Helena also failed to see the signs. She has to live with it. Looking back, she says she was in survival mode. The well-being of her children fell by the wayside.
I went down. I went straight down. So, emotionally and physically. Because physically, my beat-ups had caught up to me. So mentally, I went straight down. So what did I do? I drank many years. Yeah. So they became addicted.
It's hard for Helena to talk about. It took her 8 years. The community practices both traditional spirituality and Christianity. but Roman Catholic ideology is heavily ingrained in daily life. Many believe divorce is not an option.
And everybody telling me, native way, I would say, you have to go back to your husband. You have to. Fine, I'll try it again.
Helena did exactly that, and her second daughter began cutting herself. Judy Klassen is Helena's cousin. Klassen says victims get to a point where violence seems normal.
You don't feel like your life is in danger. You know, oh, this wasn't so bad. And it's a weird mental state that you're in where self-preservation, it just doesn't exist.
Klassen knows this firsthand. She is also a survivor of domestic violence. One night she was hurt so bad she feared her partner would kill her.
I had to leave my kids, and that was the hardest thing. I couldn't run with them. I couldn't carry myself barely. My arms were just, felt like my arms were broken, felt like my legs were broken, but you know, it really felt like I was going to be killed if I stayed there.
Now an MLA, Klassen is outspoken.
I was 6 months pregnant when my partner hit me so hard that I passed out on the ground, only to be found by a patrolling RCMP a little while later. I managed to survive that episode in my life, and I proudly stand here today and speak out and speak up for women that still can't speak for themselves.
For Klassen's sister, Stephanie Wood, the moment to leave her abuser came when she realized she had nothing left to give.
I'd like to say that I stood up and said no more of this, and I walked out all powerful. It wasn't like that at all. It was more, I was completely broken. Everything that I had, it was like I had already spent it all.
It's been a hidden issue that people don't like to talk about. When people don't talk about a problem, it makes it hard to get the services that could help. Isla Harper is a nurse in St. Teresa Point. She treats victims but says there isn't much she can do. For example, there are no shelters.
There's no resources like any home here. Like you can't even, like I feel scared when I send them home.
Leaving the violence often means leaving the community. That is easier talked about than done.
I can't medevac them out because they're, you know, risk for violence because they're stable, right? So what do? They try to escape, like go out of the community, and they can't even afford plane fare because it's so isolated. Like say if they have like 5 kids and themselves, that's about, I don't know, $2,000.
But Helena and her kids got out. She called a shelter.
And I left under the rug. I just decided just like that, called Oliver House and just told him what my situation was. Said I need to get out, I need to get out.
The shelter paid for transportation out of the community. Waiting at the other end was her cousin Klassen.
It was so heart-wrenching to see my nieces and nephews and just these bewildered faces, right? And like, what's in store for us? You know, what's happening, kind of, and trying to offer that reassurance that Auntie's gonna help as much as possible. And it was hard for them to trust, you know, coming from a home like that where they saw violence every day.
Problems don't just go away when you leave. Helena learned that when she kept using booze to cope. She needed programs, but they seemed impossible to access.
In order to foster parenting skills and in order to foster being able to make decisions and being, you know, and create a safe home and to teach children what authority is, you need to be trained.
It's been 8 years since Helena left. She's on a healing journey, but some wounds remain. She was once choked so hard that to this day she can barely swallow.
I can't swallow solids. I can't push it down. Even though I do, it feels like it's stuck there, but I can't push it down. I don't have that ability to push it down. I blend my food. I puree my food like a baby food.
She wanted to tell this story because she wants change.
Still today, there is no help out there. I haven't seen any changes. They only act like in a crisis system if one is already too late, or like a really wounded person. Then they go to hospital, to the nursing. They get rushed to the nursing station. They have to be shipped out. That kind of crisis situation.
Helena would like to see a shelter, but most of all, she wants women to know there are resources outside the community, and there are people, including her, who will do their best to help women get out.
You're not alone. That there is hope. Yeah. And getting it out of it, it's okay to get out of it. It's okay, just you have to get out for yourself and the children. Domestic violence doesn't come first. Break the silence. You don't have to be silent, you don't have to be scared.
Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Time for another quick break, and then we'll speak with one of this year's Polaris Prize nominees. Here's the rest of Thursday's weather forecast, picking back up in northern Alberta. 24 for Peace River and Fort McMurray, 29 in High Level, 32 in Medicine Hat, 31 under the sun in Lethbridge. In British Columbia, 20 for Victoria and Vancouver, 23 in Bella Coola, 30 for Fort Nelson, 25 in Smithers and Prince George. In the Yukon, 7 in Rock River, 23 in Whitehorse, 21 in Dawson and Mayo. Over to NWT, 31 for Trout Lake, Fort Liard and Fort Simpson, 21 in Norman Wells, 0 for Sax Harbor, +6 in Paulatuck, 16 in Colville Lake. In Nunavut, 14 in Arviette, 10 for Chesterfield and Baker Lake on Thursday, +4 in Aglulik, Arctic Bay and Clyde River. Welcome back. For 60 years, when you saw the igloo tag, you knew that the art was authentically Inuit. In 2017, the government gave control of the tag to the Inuit Art Foundation. And now one Inuit-owned business is qualified to say this art is Inuk. Here's Kent Driscoll.
This is Inuit art. So is this. This too. And this tag confirms it. And now there is one Inuit business permitted to use the tag, Carvings Nunavut and Iqaluit.
We're very excited to have become licensees to be able to issue the igloo tag to confirm that we are actually buying and selling Inuit art.
That iconic igloo tag was founded 60 years ago to prevent knockoff Inuit art from flooding the marketplace. In 2017, the federal government turned the tag over to the Inuit Art Foundation, and they decided to let Idlaut have the chance to identify and label Inuit art.
It's a wonderful way of confirming the amazing Inuit talent that we have. Like to be able to say, this is beautiful Inuit art. It's a way to market our products so that we can say, not are we just talking about Inuit art, but we can confirm that through the igloo tag that we're selling authentic Inuit art.
The tag alone can add more than $100 to the price of Inuit art and confirms that you won't end up with a made-in-China Inukshuk. Before now, only governments and big retailers had the right to award the tag. Idlaut is the first new recipient in 45 years. When she realized that she was the first Inuk gallery owner to have the right to assign the tag, Idlaut was pleased.
When I realized that, I was like, okay, well, that's silly. But at the same time, it's exciting for me because I get to be the first for something. I think all human beings like to be the first for something.
The art hasn't changed much, just the way the tags are awarded. Now an Inuk gallery owner in an Inuit town will get to say what is authentically Inuit. And all this art is authentically Inuit. Kent Driscoll, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
Some great looking pieces there. Well, the Polaris Music Prize is one of Canada's most prestigious awards honoring musicians. Jeremy Dutcher is one of 10 nominees for the 2018 prize. We spoke with him earlier about his debut album that combines his classically trained operatic tenor voice with traditional Wolastoq songs from 1907. Have a listen. Thanks so much for joining us. Obviously, a lot of work went into putting an album like this together. Why did you want to include traditional songs from your ancestors?
Yeah, I mean, the inclusion of the ancestral voices in this record was something that was really important right from the get-go. It was actually an elder of mine named Maggie Paul from St. Mary's First Nation in Wolastoq territory. And she told me about these old recordings that were living at the museum that were collected in the early 1900s. And so I went to the archive and got to hear these old wax recordings from 110 years ago. And then I started to write songs around them. You know, I was a pianist and wanted to write music around these old songs. And it was very important for me to do that and do it in the language, too.
What does it mean for you and the music to be included in the shortlist for the Polaris Music Prize?
Yeah, the shortlist nomination was a surprise, and I was so excited when I got the call. I got to meet Buffy St. Marie at the announcement a little while ago, and she's somebody that I've looked up to my entire life. And so this award and this prize has brought so many good things into my life so far, and I think it's really huge that there's actually 2 Indigenous nominees this year. Both me and Snotty Nose Res Kids are also nominated for the Polaris. So for me, it's exciting, and I think it's saying good things that we have 2 nominations coming from our community.
Only a few hundred people still speak the language. What do you hope this extra attention could do for the language? Yeah,
so Wolastoq is in a very dangerous place right now. You know, like you said, there's less than 100 speakers, fluent speakers from birth left, and so I think hopefully that me talking about it and singing in this language is going to let other young people of my nation know of the urgency and help them to understand the importance of our languages and what it actually does for our lives. So I hope, you know, there's so many people doing work around linguistic revitalization in our community. So I think, you know, this is just my one small part of that and my offering to other Wolastoq people, you know, to think about our language and how important it is to us.
Well, I've seen a number of posts of people declaring their vote for you, and it really is quite a listen. So we appreciate you taking some time to speak with us here today about it.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much, and we'll chat again soon.
And best of luck to Jeremy, the Snotty Nose Res Kids, and all the other nominees for this year's prize. That's your APTN National News for this Wednesday. For more, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.